Music Row to collect my plaques off the wall and all my belongings out of my longtime studio at Warner. So it's
Oh,
kind of emotional, but I'm also excited for a new chapter.
wow. So it's just the way it goes. And you've been there a long time, right? To
Oh
the
yeah.
90s?
If I count the early years that with Scott Hendricks, which was part of my Warner deal, it goes back to 1993. Yeah. So
Wow.
27 years at the same publishing company is highly unusual.
Well, I've been recording. I just want my viewers out there now to know that I want to introduce Grammy nominated songwriter extraordinaire, Marv Green. Thank you
uh,
for joining us today.
my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I love your backdrop.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've been writing at the house a lot, and I have a studio upstairs, but I love the sunroom over here for just most of the Zoom stuff. It's nice. And then I found that even writing down here is good too. So I like a lot of light. Let the light in.
Let the light in. So with this pandemic and being shut in, there's no touring. So you have more time to write.
I have all the time in the world to write.
You have writer's block?
No, not really. No,
Good.
I know when to take a break and just do some get into a good novel or watch the movie or listen to some conversation and the thing about it is when I'm not writing, a lot of times I'm doing guitar overdubs here and working on my demos. So yeah.
Wow. So I read that you were a Southern California native and you moved to Nashville back in the 90s. Tell us about that, your upbringing that led you to songwriting.
Sure. Yeah. Well, as far as I can remember, back to being a child in Santa Barbara, my dad, even in his early, my early memories of him driving us around, he had an 8-track, of course. And I remember Merle Haggard, the best of the Hag, Buck Owens, Tammy Wynette, Glenn Campbell, Hank Sr. Those were the records I remember spinning and on the 8-track as a kid. My brother and I, relatively early on, maybe third grade, I remember purchasing our first records. As far as I can recall, my first album I purchased was Honky Tonk Heroes by Waylon Jennings. And
Wow.
yeah, my brother, I believe his was that live record that Merle Haggard did at that time. And so we were big fans. We moved from Santa Barbara to the San Ynez Valley when I was in 4th grade. My brother was in 6th grade. We got a little more property. We had 3 or 4 acres, and we had horses and really just embraced, although we were 25 minutes to the beach, 30 minutes to the beach, we really embraced everything that the valley had to offer with horses and 4-H and FFA. And right about that time, we really loved listening to John Denver. I remember especially wanting to learn to sing and play some of those songs. And so my brother got a guitar first, and I followed suit, wanted to do what Big Brother did, and he said, "Man," and he kind of he had a real knack for it quickly. And I started to bang around. He said, "Oh, you're never going to be able to play that thing." It's funny. So I tried bass, I tried banjo, and remember also this time hee haw was Saturday night. Hee haw was happening, and so after dinner we'd go watch hee haw too.
Yep.
And then I think my mom would watch Lawrence Welk after that, and so we were exposed to that. And my uncle had a nice late 20s Martin parlor guitar, which is now mine. He handed down to me.
Wow.
But yeah, I remember my Uncle Weldon at barbecues would take out the guitar and we'd be intrigued by that. He'd play kind of a flamenco style. And so that was the beginning of the interest. And then as we got a little older, we started entering ourselves in, contests or, San Ynez Valley Days had a battle of the bands kind of thing. And then directly after that, it kind of turned into people hiring us for weddings and into our teens, and then we kind of got into the bars before we were old enough as far as playing. We had to leave the venue during breaks because we weren't old enough to drink. Yeah. So that was sort of you know, I credit my brother with introducing me to a lot of that music too, because he would bring home Emmylou Harris and Graham Parsons and Desert Rose Band and those kind of records that really resonated with me as well. So.
Wow. So did you guys tour too later in life, or did he
It,
sing?
it was one of the things that led me to Nashville because we were in our 20s making a living playing music. We would play. My brother was so good at booking us from San Luis Obispo, Paso Robles, all the way down through Pismo to San Ynez Valley, Santa Barbara, Ventura, and then occasionally down into Orange County. And he was so great at every weekend he had us playing somewhere. And so that kind of evolved into us. There was a contest put on by True Value and GMC, uh, and to end up in Nashville if you won. So we won the Western United States.
Wow.
They flew us to Branson, Missouri after we won that side of the states, and so we were in the finals with Kenny Rogers and Doug Stone hosting the show, and we did not win, but that was one of the moments where everybody there said, "Your songs are really good. You should go to Nashville sometime." And I loved California, so it was one of those things that was always hard to. But I figured, well, I'm here in Branson. I might as well go see Nashville, you know. So I did, and once I did that, I fell in love with what I saw in Nashville.
So do you remember what was the first song that you wrote for yourself?
Like the first song ever?
Yeah, do you remember?
Oh, I was young. It's funny because my son Gibson, who's 10, he's starting to write songs, and I go back to the first song I can honestly remember is about my dog, and I remember it's funny, but it was like, "There's times when I need a friend that I can talk to, and a friend that seems to understand my views. So I call my dog and we sit on the lawn. He's the one I lay my problems on. He never argues or complains." And then the chorus was just like, "I wonder what he'd say if that old dog could talk. Would he tell me that I'm crazy, or would he get up and walk away?"
Awesome. Did you record that song?
No, I was young. I had no means to record it. I've just always remembered it. And then the chorus just was me whistling because the dog loved to hear me whistle. So.
Well, you need to put that out there for us animal lovers, dog lovers.
Yeah.
Come on, Marv.
The dog song. There's been some great songs about dogs for sure over the years, but that's the first one I can remember. And then the first one I can ever remember recording was a song called "Rubbed Up, Let's Jump in the Hot Tub" because my parents just got a hot tub.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's another story in itself.
Yeah, completely different story.
Well, so your number one song was back in 1998 called "True," recorded by George Strait. Where did that inspiration come from? What an amazing song.
Oh, thank you. That was my first number one, and what a joy and a gift to have George be my first number one. I love playing with words, and I still do. And there's something. It's funny because I just talked to Chris Jansen about this because he just had "Done," and I said, well, there's something intriguing about these one-word titles because there's no trick. You're just looking at a word lyrically and trying to figure out, you know, what seems to flow with that word. And that's what happened with "True." I wrote the word "true" down and then just started writing these phrases about a love song. And I brought a good piece of that song to Jeff Stevens, who now produces Luke Bryan, and Jeff was starting to really kick in with some success with George, and we wrote that song, and it was one of those things. I think we pitched to Brooks and Dunn first, and I think they kind of liked it, but they didn't record it, and then George heard it and just loved it, you know, so it worked out good.
Wow. So once a star like George Strait and some of these others, you work for so many, when they record one of your songs, and do they personally come back to you and get another one, or does it go through other their managers and stuff? How does it work?
I think they become aware. It's funny because I would argue, in fact, I know Tim McGraw has recorded the most of my songs. I think I've got 7 with Tim now, but
Wow.
it's never a direct thing. It's always through his A&R person or whatever. I just don't. I don't know. I never have always felt comfortable. I guess there's a few artists I feel like I can send songs directly, but especially back in my success with George. George was being produced by Tony Brown, and I loved. It was such a pleasure to go to Tony's office and go play him songs because he loved songs, and he'd get so excited. I mean, he'd sit there and listen, and he'd go, "I'm going to call George right now. I'm going to call George," and so he'd get on the phone, and sure enough, and he'd go, "Oh." Oh, we got one Marv just wrote, and it was just exciting to know that existed. And if you've ever met George, I mean, George is a
Yes.
man. Yeah, he doesn't say a lot when you meet
Nope.
him. I mean, it's funny. You
He's
just
so
go.
quiet.
And I mean, I think the last time I saw him, it was ridiculous. It was at the BMI Awards, and I said, "Hey George, good to see you, Marv Green." It just comes. I started naming the songs. I was going, "What am I doing?" I mean, he knows who I am, and I don't need to do all that.
Oh,
But
how
he's
funny.
he's just cowboy kind of. He's got that thing where he just kind of looks at you and smiles, and you're like, "Dang, all right, I'm just going to shut up and walk away now." But I mean, George's voice is just consistently great, and I'd argue it's just as good now as it's ever been.
Oh, sure is. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that leads to that song called "Amaze," your second number one song by Lone Star. Where
Uh-huh.
did that come from? I love that song, by the way.
Oh, thank you. So this is a great moment because George, my number one song was out, and Amy Mayo, a girl from Gaston, Alabama, who's actually putting out a great biography shortly. Um, she called me one night, and back then, it's not so much this way anymore, especially not now. Back then, the recording studios were always booked, so you had to book. If you wanted to cut five demos, you had to book like a month and a half out
Wow.
because they were that busy, especially the ones that the hits were coming out of, certain studios. And that would happen. People would just have a run and like, where did you record at? So then everybody run over there and go record over there sometime. And so there were a couple studios that way. And so Amy, unbeknownst to me, had a session the next day and she needed one more song. So she called me, and I just met Tasha, and Amy and I had we landed in Nashville about the same time. We had sort of a brotherly sister kind of a relationship. We'd go listen to music and hang out, but that was about it. And she called me, and she knew that I'd met the woman for me, and she called me and she said, "Marv, what are you doing tonight?" with that real Gaston, Alabama accent. And I said, "Oh, I'm just hanging out." And she said, "Well, I want to write a love song tonight." And she starts laughing, and I said, "You do, huh?" And because she knew that I just met Tasha, my wife, and so I said, "All right, I'll come over and we can see what happens." So I get over there, and Chris Lindsay's over there, who I'd met, who actually lived in LA for a while. He played in Lou Diamond Phillips' band, the Pipe Fitters, before he moved out here to Nashville. But he landed here about the same time as well. And so Chris was there, and I said, "Oh, okay, so the three of us are going to write a love song, okay." And so we kind of set up in her little room there. We lit some candles, and I didn't know those two were falling in love with each other. And so it's just one of those moments where love was in the air, and we wrote about it.
Wow.
And we didn't have that little bit at the end is funny. We didn't have, we went into the studio, we had most of the verses, but then we had every little thing that you do. We weren't sure, we liked Amazed, but we weren't sure, maybe Amazed by You, but then we're like, well, Paul McCartney's got Baby, I'm Amazed. And so we weren't sure. And then finally, Amy's publisher said, "Just call it Amazed. Just call it Amazed." And so we said, "Okay, we'll call it Amazed."
That's nothing how that happens. Oh my God, there's a story to every song, right?
I know. But yeah,
Oh
that
my,
that was a great moment because we were, Amy and I and Chris too, We were like really into some of those like Pablo Neruda and some of those Spanish love poems, you know, and I feel like a lot of that was kind of, you know, in fact, I think
Wow.
that's when that movie Il Postino came out. And so we went to go see that, and that was kind of fun to watch, you know, a poet in film like that.
Well, I see you have a huge list of artists that you've written for. Let's kind of talk about Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson. You know,
Oh, yeah.
those are the two I'd really like to talk about today.
Yeah, so I've had one, and so the story to this is I was at a Don Williams show at the Ryman here, and this is one of those things, you know, and I know you know, sometimes you just got to put stuff out there, you know, tell God, just put it out there into the atmosphere and just and just say it, and I literally was sitting at the Ryman, and a friend of mine got to open up for Don, and Don played a song that he'd recorded of his that was going to be on Don's new record, and I sat there and I was like, oh, that'd be amazing to have a Don Williams cut, and I'd love that. But I said if I could have any cut, I would take a Willie Nelson cut or a Merle Haggard cut. Okay, so I said that. Now about 3 months later, I'm sitting in my studio with Sean Camp, good buddy of mine, great singer songwriter, guitar playing fool. And Sean and I had both had success with George Strait. And so we were sitting down in my studio and I said, well, let's just write for George. He's cutting in a few months. We should do that. So we start writing the song for George. And then out of nowhere, he goes, oh, by the way, he goes, in a couple of months, I'm going to play acoustic on the new Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson album that they're going to do. They hadn't done anything since Poncho and Lefty, you know. And I said, I know. I said, so you're going to go play guitar for them? He goes, oh, yeah, they want me to play guitar on a couple tracks. And I said, then we have to write for them. We'll write for George later. We have to write for this project. This is amazing. So he said, well, here's the deal. I've sent Willie a lot of songs, you know, and they just keep coming back going, no, that's it. That's not it. That's not it. And I said, well, here's the deal. I've got one idea that's not really valid for anybody super contemporary. Well, not that word. Just most people are not going to say this, but those two will if we write it right. And that's a quote that an actor said years and years ago that said, I'd have taken better care of myself if I'd have known I was going to live this long. And so I said, there is a song in that, if you just, you know, if we write it right. And so, you know, we just sat there and thought about them and wrote this song called Live This Long. And so we're done. We set up a mic in the middle of my studio, just two acoustic guitars. We're sitting in the middle and we play it, record it. And we call up Buddy Cannon, who's producing that record. And we said, Buddy, we've got a song we think could be really good. He said, well, I'm still here. Why don't y'all come over and play it for me? So we, as you can imagine, drive as fast as we can to his studio in Berry Hill. We bring what we have and he listens to it. He goes, all right, I like it. I'll send it to Willie. He sends it off, emails it to Willie. I'm driving home. And before I get home, Willie has already responded saying, I love this. I'm going to send it to Merle.
Wow.
And so Buddy's saying, Willie loves it, you guys. And so we're all excited. A couple of days later, we hear that Merle loves it too. So they go in. Sean's back there. Dan Rather's there interviewing them. And Sean's watching them get interviewed for this little thing that Dan Rather's doing. And so Dan goes, hey, do you guys know what you're going to record? And they said, oh, we're going to do this. And then we got this new song called Live This Long we're going to do. And so as Sean heard that because he was right there, he gets on the phone and says, they're going to cut it tomorrow. And it happened. So I have a song on the last record those two did together.
Yeah. God, what a special story that is. Thank you for sharing that. Oh my God, those are my two heroes.
And then another great thing that happened is about the record came out, and then a couple of months later, Merle was here starting before he passed away. He was here starting to record a little more with Buddy, and Sean called me and he said, "Hey," he said, "Merle is down here on his bus, and down on Music Row." he said, get down here right now, because we talked about, I've got my original, I try to write on paper still. I don't, although I do work on the computer, I still
Yeah.
love to write. He said, if you want that lyric son, he said, get down here right now. And so, of course, I ran right back down the Music Row, and I get to the bus, and Sean's stepping off. He goes, I got to go. And so I said, all right. So I get on the bus, and it's, the Hag is right there. And I only met Merle just once at the BMIs, and you know, there are people everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, here's a situation where Merle was just sitting on his bus, got to talk to him for 30 minutes, 40 minutes about California. I told him my first concert ever was Santa Barbara County Bowl, Merle Haggard and the Strangers. That was my first concert ever. I was about, I was probably about nine or 10.
Wow.
And they used to, I said, do you remember parking, you parked the bus back on the stage? My brother has a picture of that back on the Santa Barbara County Bowl with the bus in the background. And he said, oh yeah, I remember that old bus. And we talked about, you know, Santa Barbara and all the California. It was beautiful. I'll never forget that.
Yeah, that was special. Merle happened to be here in the Saban Theater, which is in Wilshire. And I had the honor of interviewing him, and he was here with Chris Christopherson, and he had canceled like at the beginning of the year because he wasn't well, and then he came back and he sounded amazing, very hoarse, like when they're interviewing him, talking to him. It was just like he was my uncle, you know. And I was so blessed, and I cried for days when he passed because it was a few months after that, and it was but he's an amazing guy. He loves, if you love country, he just takes you in. I mean, he just, you know, it was awesome. You're blessed to have had that too.
Oh, I cherish it. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you, the album Pouring Raindrops Back Into Clouds, is that something that's been out already, or you're working on it?
It's my project that's out on iTunes and Spotify and everything. It's just, when I play out at the Bluebird or across the country songwriter shows, people always, you know, I've done a few things that I've just kind of hadn't put out, but I've sold it at venues that have just been songs not recorded, but people kept asking for me to do versions of the hits I've had. And so I did, and that's what that is. I thought, you know, there's a line that I co-wrote in Wasted, a line that when we said you know, about pouring raindrops back in the clouds, and it was sort of, you know, although in Wasted, when we wrote that, it was you know, sort of a hopeless situation, but I also thought me re-singing my songs was pouring raindrops back in the clouds as well.
That's a great title. I was going to ask you how you got that title.
Yeah.
Yeah, because these do cause some little bit of raindrops in your eyes. Teardrops, some of these songs. How was it to play on this album? How was it to you to sing Creepin'? I love Creepin'. Eric Church.
I love it, and I loved writing that song with Eric. I love any day that I get with Eric. He's such a great songwriter, and just always fun to hang around, and he knows what he wants, and I love that about him. But yeah, you know, if I could do that project all over again, I probably would do it a little different, a little more acoustic, maybe. I think as it started off that way, and then I started overdubbing stuff, and you know, it is what it is, but at least it's something that, you know, sort of that I can give, sell, you know, or whatever, just so the fans hear my take on them. Although, you know, I'm always looking, you know, I'm always more interested in the next song.
That's good. Are you working currently with anybody right now?
What's that?
Are you working with any of the entertainers right now?
Yeah, I just worked with Chris Jansen, having fun, getting ready to write, and I have a couple weeks ago, but getting ready to get back with Midland on Tuesday. Got two tunes on their new record that I love, and I love them. I love everything that they're about, and their whole vibe. And they accuse me of maybe the missing member of Midland every now and then.
I can see that. Let's see you. That would be great.
Nah, my wife.
They're great.
But I've had fun. I've gone on the road with them before to write, and that proved successful. But we're gonna do the old online attempt at songwriting next week. I'm looking forward to that. And who else is coming up? There's always projects to chase. I know Jason Aldean's going to be recording again soon, and John Party, who I love, be recording again soon. So any of those guys, you know, when they're coming up, always thinking about that, you know.
Do you have any little fun stories to tell about any of the artists you've recorded for?
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, I don't know if I want to tell them.
Tell us a nice one.
A nice one. Well, I
That'd be
will say,
fun.
I mean, I tell him this, it's one of my favorite nights every year is Eric Church invites us over. My wife has befriended his wife, and there's sort of a little girls group that's sort of only about five of them. And so it turns into about, you know, five couples right before Christmas having dinner way too late. You know, it's like by the time dinner's ready, it's midnight, and then there's some wine drinking, and it goes into the wee hours, and it's just we always have so much fun, and it's just one of my favorite nights of the year. So you know that's special. You know, just for someone that's in Eric's level, you know, to go hang out with him on a holiday nights. That's always fun. Let me think. I mean, we had so much fun on the road with Midland, and we laughed a lot. Um, and on that tour, let me try to make sure this is right. That was Casey Musgraves and Little Big Town, which was just a great. It was Little Big Town's kind of their big the bigger. Uh, I don't know what the seating wise was. It was pretty good sized halls that they were playing. So it was a good venues.
Did you get to tour around before the pandemic this year? Like January to March, were you out and about?
A little bit. I did. I'm so glad I went to Sundance. Bluebird has a show they do in the spring and summer at Sundance, Utah, up at that ski resort. And I went. They tried to do a few in during the snow this time, and it was amazing. Got to go up there. It was right before. In fact, Terry McBride went with me. I know you
Oh,
talked to Terry.
Terry, yeah.
And it was a hoot. It was me, Terry, and Leslie Satcher, another amazing singer-songwriter. And so I got to play 2 nights. We saw Robert Redford. He was on the property,
Nice.
and so it was good. I got to do a little snowboarding, and the food was amazing, and the crowds were just wonderful, wonderful. So
Yeah.
I did that, and I played the Bluebird a little before the pandemic happened, and then I had one more out of town, and where did I go? Um, I'm trying to think what that was. It was in January, but I can't remember. That's funny.
That's okay. Well, that's good. So you're gonna have what do you plan on doing for the rest of the year?
Well, just writing songs, just uh, I don't. I did my first online. It was more of a corporation show with Travis Hill and Jimmy Robbins, and we had fun. It was actually better than I thought, and we played to about 300 to 400 people, and it was fun. They ended like about 20 at a time. They'd have people's faces pop up, and you could wave to them and that kind of thing. But I'm just gonna just kind of enjoy. This is that back to school feeling. Although a lot of them aren't back to school, but my kids are. And it's just that it's just time to be creative. It's when it starts to cool down a little bit to me. It gives that sort of you know feeling in the air you want to write. So I'll be focusing on that, and I'm okay. I'm okay with just being here and getting creative with how we record these songs, and just making up new ones.
Have you had opportunity to write a book, Marv, at all?
No, I need to. It's funny because my good friend and co-writer Amy Mayo is doing one that's going to be amazing. She's had such a crazy life that it's very, it's very, just really good reading. And for me, I need to write down more things than I have. I used to be so good about journaling,
Yeah.
events in my life, and I just need to just go back. I might have to start backwards and just go back as far as I can, because maybe someday it'd be nice to write, a book about my experience on Music Row.
Oh, That would be amazing. So work on that.
I will. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, yeah.
Work on that. Hey, let's talk a little bit about that great show, Nashville. I heard you wrote a few songs for that show. I sure missed that show. Oh, I loved it.
I know. Yeah.
Gosh.
And that really was a catalyst for the growth spurt I think we had in Nashville.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah.
I think it made a lot of people at least want to come and have a look, and a lot of people ended up staying here.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we heard about that, just got excited about what it was. I was lucky enough to have one in that first season, and then another one I think in season 2. But those songs, you know, I don't recall that we wrote those songs for the show. It just so happens that they worked for the show. One of which I'll try to remember, one that Connie and Hayden did. It's funny because that song, you got the wrong song coming through your speakers. This one's about a liar and a cheater. It's called Wrong Song. And
Yeah.
I wrote it with Sonia Isaacs, amazing voice, and Jimmy Urey, great singer-songwriter. Actually, they're married. And we wrote that song, and it just so happened to work for the show. And ironic that they actually filmed a segment where the song went #1. And I kind of got jealous because they were having a #1 party for my song and I wasn't there. But
Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh, well, thank you for taking the time to talk with me in the Hollywood Times, and we'll make sure to follow your career.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I try to do good as far as keeping people posted. I've got to get better with my website. But once we get back to actually doing shows again, I'll post real where I happen to be on marvgreen.com, and Marvo Greeno is my Instagram. I'm not a great Instagrammer, but every now and then I'll post something that happened musically. And yeah, other than that, appreciate you reaching out, and I loved talking to you today.